America and even Africa at the Olympic Games. And yes, still as a goalkeeper. I'm currently studying a BA in History and Geography in order to do my PGCE next year and become a teacher. In Matric, I was chosen to represent the South African under-20 girls at the FINA World Champs, which was held in Greece. In a game, there's 4 chuckers, and in the team, you have about 2 goalkeepers. So, so my first game of the tournament was against Greece, and we lost that game about 21-6, and Greece came second in the tournament. And because there's 2 goalkeepers, normally one will play 2 chuckers and another one will play the other 2 chuckers. And when I got in, they scored 7. Out of the 21 goals, 7 were scored past me in 2 chuckers. So I thought I had a really good game, and everyone back at home and on the pool deck thought I had a really good game as well. With 5 more games left of the tournament, I unfortunately did not get put back in the water for the rest. I've always understood that a coach does things with the team's interest at heart, but at the time, I was not told what I had done wrong or what I needed to improve on. So I guess you could say I was very despondent after the tournament, and I had felt like I'd wasted my parents' money and time and I had let my country and my team down, and I was also a little bit embarrassed. Moving on, I decided to take an international break at the age of 19. I played water polo for the NMU, and I played the annual Currie Cup competition. In 2018, I was not involved in any international events. Moving on to 2019, when I was still retired, I got a phone call from Delane asking me if I want to go to Russia to play in a tournament. And I saw this as like God's sign saying, you need to get back into it now. And so then I started training and ended up going to Russia and had a really good tournament. In 2020, in the beginning of 2020, the first Olympic selection camp was happening, and at the time, I was not interested. Unfortunately, in water polo, most of the events are self-funded and range about 50 to 60,000 rand. I made the decision that I was going to stop playing internationally to take pressure off of my mom and dad so that they could start saving for my brother's university fees. I mean, he just got accepted into astrophysics at UCT. So I just told my parents that if I want to play international polo, then I'll pay for it by myself. Then the Olympic journey started this time last year. I had come out of lockdown with no ambition to play water polo, and I guess you could say it was right to feel like this. The break was definitely needed. My friend Ashley and I decided to give it a shot. Even if it got too much, we could always pull out. But then the more that we trained, the more we began to dream. We started to get stronger and stronger day by day. And most days consisted of 3 or 4 pool sessions with a gym and mobility session in between, and now doing that 5 to 6 days a week for a year. I can say with confidence there were so many times when I wanted to give up. I went through a rough patch where I became so emotional and so badly wanted to stop. I cried after every practice, and I felt like I had hit the wall, as athletes know, and that I wasn't improving or going anywhere. There were even a few days where I struggled to motivate myself. But now you must know that there were 3 of us in Port Elizabeth, 4 including Delane, 3 players, and the rest were scattered all around the country. We would have a training camp, which is self-funded, every 4 to 5 weeks in Cape Town, Durban, or Joburg. We would meet up with the whole team and train together for a weekend. We would then go back to our own provinces and train by ourselves or in our little groups. It did get hard, and we had to try and stay motivated, but then I just thought to myself, my teammates are training their hearts out for me in their province. Why can't I do it here? Like, I must do it for them. Fast forward to the announcement. It was such a magical moment. I'll paint the picture for you quickly. My mom, my dad, my brother, my boyfriends, and even my dogs, all sitting on the couch at home with the fire on. We were notified that morning, after a long wait, that the announcement was going to take place in the evening. I honestly tried to make that day go by so quickly, but it was the longest day of my whole life. We were watching the launch of the SABC Sports Channel, and then, last but not least, water polo, last in the alphabet, showed up. The men's team was announced, and then the women's team. As soon as it started, my best friend Ashley's name came up, and I burst into tears because I was so happy for her. As the announcement went along, I got more anxious and we all started to get nervous. My name came up and I burst into tears. My family screamed with joy and my dad couldn't stop crying. Now fast forward to the actual Tokyo Olympic Games 2020. This is where it gets hard because I want to tell you everything and every second of what happened, but I will keep it very brief. We arrived in the Olympic Village at 4 o'clock in the morning after about 50 hours of traveling and going through customs. We were mostly awake for those hours, so we were extremely jet-lagged. We went straight to the dining hall for breakfast, which seats thousands and thousands of athletes all at once. Any and every food that you could ever imagine was there, like pizza, pasta with carbonara sauce, deep-fried camembert cheese, noodles, burgers, fruits, sushi, cereals, pastries, ice cream, literally anything. So yeah, and you could have as much as you want, and it was open 24/7. So then we settled into Building 15, which overlooks the Quad, shared with America, Australia, Great Britain, and Japan, which was very cool. And for those of you who are wondering, yes, the beds were definitely made out of cardboard, and they were very comfortable. Everything in the village was for free, like the hospital was for free, gym, games room, free medical care, free food, drinks, wherever you go, but then the merch store, we had to pay. We trained twice every day with gym and mobility sessions in between, and this was our game day ritual. We'd wake up at about 7 a.m., do our daily COVID test by spitting in a tube, breakfast at 8, bus leaves at 9, get back from training at 11:30, have an hour board session where we chat about our training and our opponents, have lunch at 1 o'clock, team talk at 3:30, leave for our game at 5 o'clock, which starts at 7 o'clock. We would warm up for 45 minutes, and then 15 minutes before the game, we'd go into a room where they check our nails and our accreditation. The introduction would start, which is when we walk onto the pool deck and sing our national anthem with quite a few tears. We then play our match, and after our game, there's a quick media conference and some drug tests that take place. We would then get home at about 10 o'clock at night and head straight for the dining hall. It really is amazing walking through the village. You meet the biggest sporting stars in history. For the tennis players, we met Andy Murray, Djokovic, Tsitsipas, and Monfils and his wife Elina. For the swimmers, we saw Caleb Dressel and, of course, chilled with Tatiana and Chad. For the athletes, we saw Alison Felix and Elaine Thompson, and we saw a little bit of the Australian men's hockey team, only to find out their coach is from Durban. We also saw NBA star Devin Booker from afar and Luka Doncic, and I can really tell you that we felt like the smallest fish in the biggest pond. With regards to my tournament as an individual, those 4 games were the best water polo I've ever played in my whole entire life. I was the only goalkeeper for South Africa, so I guess you could say afterwards I was quite tired mentally and physically. I saved 4 out of 5 penalties in the Olympic Games, which is the best percentage I've ever done. The final statistics came out, and although we placed last in the Olympics, I had the 5th highest number of saves out of 10 goalkeepers in the world. This was after I had played 4 games and the rest had all played 7. When I think of that, I get goosebumps because I was ranked 4 places away from my role model, Ashley Johnson, the greatest women's goalkeeper of all time. And I still go blank. And I still go blank when I think about it. And yes, I did cry when I met her. Yeah. Yeah, there's a photo to prove it. I was then approached by the coordinator of FINA, where he asked me for my phone number and my email address, and he told me that there are a few clubs around the world that would be interested in me. To be honest, going to the Olympics, I didn't expect any of that to happen. On our way home, with our many delayed flights, I had some time to reflect and came to the conclusion that I did my best to represent my country, friends, and family. I achieved everything beyond my wildest dreams, and I am walking away with an immense amount of experience and knowledge. I owe everything to my roots, and by this I mean all of my coaches, right from the word go. From when I was under 13 to when Delane was my under 15 coach here at EP, all the way through to now. For those of you who know me, I am a hard worker and I don't go down without a fight. When I was born, the doctor tore ligaments in my arm, which leaves me with Erb's palsy, a deformation in my right arm. It is a lot shorter than my left arm and has barely no strength. For your information, I've never done a push-up in my life. Or a pull-up. But we'll get there. When I was younger, I got bullied a lot because of my upper body strength, and my upper body couldn't do what other girls did. And then, after being bullied, it became my dream to go to the Paralympics, which I do qualify for. But why should I stop there when I can go further? We may not have walked away with a gold medal, but I definitely stood on my personal podium. I was ranked the number 5th goalkeeper in the world with a deformed arm, way out of my league, but I didn't give up. It was a really tough couple of months trying to balance university, collegiate hostel duties, coaching various teams, and trialing and training for the Olympics, and I'd put COVID on top of that. But as I look back, I would do it all over again. Thank you.
Megan, you need to keep that with you. Thanks.
Okay.
Okay, so how did you handle the big occasion of the Olympics? And what did you learn that you can take into future competitions?
I definitely learned that I cried every day. Just taking all of it in, it was just so emotional. And I think coming back from that, I learned to stay mentally strong. So, for example, if the score starts running away, after each goal I reset and still try and save it as if it's the first goal. As a goalkeeper, you must know that if you drop your head, you're impacting the rest of your team. You're the last line of defense. So if you drop your head, then your team's going to be like, well, why am I still defending if my goalkeeper's not trying? So we almost have to mentally be strong for our defenders and say, come on, let's carry on going. Yeah.
And then from my side, I just want to know, being so young and achieving as much as you have so far and still probably a lot more to achieve, how do you continually stay motivated? How do you continue to set bigger goals for yourself? And just take us through that mental preparation, emotional preparation, maybe even spiritual preparation that you go through.
Well, I think after my under-20 episode when I went all the way to Greece and played 2 out of 24 chukkers, after that, mentally I was so out of it that I didn't want to do it anymore. And then when Delane gave me a phone call, then I was like, this is God telling me that I need to get my life back on track and I need to start doing what I love. And then I started falling in love with it again. And ever since then, it's almost like I want to prove the haters wrong. Yeah, I want to prove to everybody that I do deserve to play and I can train hard. So, yeah.
Just to follow up with that, do you feel like that pause that you took was necessary, and how do you feel like that pause affected your reappearance as well?
I think it was definitely necessary. I think I needed to not go down the wrong path, but the boring path first to realize what I actually was missing. I don't want to go back to that at all. I was first year with friends, meeting new people, but not in my crowd. Water polo, the water polo community is my crowd. I love being around people and being in the pool and playing. And I feel I just don't want to go. I'm on the right path now. Mentally I'm strong, physically I'm strong. I've been training. Yeah.
I love that you said that you were a chess star as a youngster and that you tried different sports. So how important do you think it is to have varied interests and to develop in those different areas, something outside of your main focus?
I think it's very important because if you play one sport from when you're 9, 10 years old, and when you get older, you're in the same community, but because I played hockey, I was in a different community, there were different people there, chess, completely different people. Chess is a completely different world out there. And it's so, you get you almost get too comfortable in your little circle, so it's so refreshing to go out to a chess tournament and see people I haven't seen for 2 months and check how they're doing, and it's refreshing to have a conversation with different people than the same people all the time. And I think if you're when my children, or when I have children, I want them to like play all the sports. I don't want them to just play one sport. Yeah, just so that they meet new people and yeah.
I'm going to come in with friends and just the people that you surround yourself with over the years, even in your short span of life. How have you seen that the people that you surround yourself with have changed through you changing as well, and how do you maintain those friendships and relationships in your profession right now and in other areas of your life as well?
It's been very interesting. I mean, Ashley, I met her in grade 5 at a gala, but she didn't remember that I met her until we got to grade 7. She completely forgot who I was, and to me, she was like my best friend, and so we've been best friends since we were in grade 5, and then through the water polo years, we like made more and more friends, and I think all my closest friends are from water polo, and like I shared the international stage with my best friend, which was just, yeah, out of this world. But I think it's very important. You do have to balance your sport life and your social life. Also because of COVID leading up to the Olympics, but my social life took a little bit of a dip because while you're training, you can't afford to catch COVID. Otherwise, you're out for about a month. So there was no or barely any socializing, practically just socializing at practice. So yeah, it's nice that all my friends understood and they kind of grew with me through the process.
Cool, and just one last one from me. What advice would you give to young men and women, sportsmen and women that are dreaming like you did to make the Olympics?
I would definitely say don't force any doors open. Like if a door is going to open, it's going to open. Like for me, I didn't try. Well, when I took my break from polo, I kind of just let that door close, and I wasn't pushing on any other doors to open. I wasn't trying anything else. I was just taking it as it comes. And then all of a sudden, this door just opened, and I was like, oh my gosh, I needed, the light is shining through that door, I must take it. So I would definitely say, especially when you're young and you're in school, you're so competitive, especially because of your school environment. So say, for example, you get dropped to from under 16A to under 16B. You mustn't just close that door straight away and like completely forget about it. Wait for it to open instead of forcing it to open and taking that pressure and like disappointment upon yourself. You must try and improve, train harder instead of closing that door completely.
Awesome, thank you.
From my side, I would just like to hear, what would you tell your younger self with what you know so far?
I would definitely tell myself that I must swim more. As a goalkeeper, I just bob up and down. I don't really swim. But if I had to tell my younger self something, I think it would be, let me think. I think it would be, I shouldn't have listened to those bullies when I was in junior school, because then I thought, well, why don't I just go to the Paralympics then and scrap the Olympics? And which I could have easily done that and set my sights on that. But back then, it was just a thought for fun. It wasn't any, like, really any ambition. But now I think about it and I'm like, those girls actually, like, made my life better. I'm so much stronger. And I look back at them and I'm almost like, look where I am now. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much. We'll open up questions for you guys later. Okay, now we're handing over to Delaine to tell us a bit about herself and her story.
Good evening, everyone. That is on, hey? My name's Delaine Mentor, and I am the South African Ladies Head Water Polo Coach. I am also the Pearson High School First Girls Coach. I am the Madiba's Ladies Coach, and now Men's Coach too. I'm the EP Under 19 Girls Coach. I'm the SA Under 20 Girls Coach. But more importantly, I am a mom. to a 1-year-old. I think that's the best role that I have. And a wife, and a daughter, and a sister, and an aunt. And yeah, so I'll share a little bit of my journey with you. In all honesty, I think coming here, so many people have said, like, thank you for joining us and thank you for being here. But just sitting in that little, worship time that we had here, it definitely felt like it was more me needing to be here. It was just so profound to sit and listen. And a lot of what was being sung resonates with me so much. Even though you might feel like you're in the storm, he's not going to let you down. So I like to, so thank you for having me and for having Meg and for hearing our stories. So I started playing water polo when I was 11 years old. And I was swimming at school, and I remember a group of high school students had popped down to the junior school, and they went, all the swimmers had to meet in like the hall, and so they came and like spoke to us and tried to introduce the sport to us. So I'll never forget, there was a girl there, she was in matric, and she went, water polo, it's a physical sport, and it involves swimming, and it's a little bit like netball, and you've got like soccer positions. And I was like, what is this? Like, I'm 11 years old. Like, what? But what caught me and what I think really drew me to it, she went, it's the most social sport in the world, and you'll get to travel the world and see so many people and meet so many people. And at that stage, I definitely think I was an introvert. So at first I was like, oh no, like I'm gonna stay right here in this individual sport. But friends of mine that I was swimming with were like, okay, we're gonna try. And I remember going to my first water polo session on that Saturday at a school in East London. And I'm from King Williamstown, tiny town right out East London. You might just blink and miss it completely. But so I was at an all-girls school, and I arrived at Stirling. There's this like indoor pool, and I was like swimming at Dale like completely new, and I was so excited. First session, completely fell in love with the sport. It was me done. I was never going back to swimming. Like this is what I wanted to do. And the year after, so when I was 12, I made my first provincial team. And I'll tell you this because this is I think that was my biggest, I think the start of my foundation, and this really good, like, solid base that led me to where I am. So we had our selection and everything went fine, and we were at our first practice. And the coach at the time, who then became my teammate, and now she's a really good friend of mine, which is very weird. I think it was her first year at university or something silly, or actually no, it was under 13, yeah. She asked the team, so a group of 13-year-olds, she went, at your next practice, you have to bring an item or something that best describes you, or something that means a lot to you. So, I knew, as soon as she said it, I knew exactly what I was bringing, and it wasn't difficult for me. I knew next session, this is what I'm bringing. So I arrive at this session, and so the other girls start taking out their stuff, and they take out like a picture of their hero. Some would take out their favorite quote, and pictures of their families, and really cool stuff. And it was my turn to take out my thing. And at first I didn't want to. I was like, maybe I should say I forgot, or I didn't. And yeah. So anyway, I took out what I brought with me, and I pulled it out, and I showed it, and everyone looked at me, and I was like, oh, they're not gonna like me, they're gonna think I'm weird, what are you thinking? And everyone was like, what is that? And I brought my rosary, because I'm Catholic, and I was 13, so I brought my rosary because it was my most favorite thing. And I grew up in a home that was deep rooted, and still is, in the Catholic faith, and I was brought up very much in the church. So this for me wasn't weird. For them, this was so weird, but also cool. They were like, whoa, this is such a cool necklace. This is so nice. Where did you get this from? And actually, so fast forward, so I explained why it's important to me and why I have it and what it is. And this coach went back and she did something I thought was incredible, and I still actually have it to this day. So she took every single team member's items that they brought and she put it on a page, like one piece of paper. And so my rosary was the middle thing on this page. So she obviously grabbed pictures everyone got your items back, but now it's this picture, right? So my rosary was the middle of the picture or the page, and everything else and everyone's items were around this thing. But basically what she was trying to say is like, everyone has these differences, but there's a way that they tie in together. And like, you have to bring in your uniqueness and your individuality within a team, and you can still all get along and be together. And it's just something that stuck with me for life. Fast forward like 20-something years, I did an interview just leading up to the Olympic Games, and they asked me if there were 2 things that you could take with you to Tokyo, and we were leaving that week. Yeah. The first thing I said, and obviously that was a must, I said my son. I wish I could pack him in my bag and just take him with me. And then I said the second thing is my rosary. And it's just something, and it's not a difficult question for me. When I leave home, when I go on my tours, my mom, that's the first thing she says, have you packed it? And if I didn't, she like panics and like, this is like her thing. But yeah, so that's my one thing that I keep with me, and I feel like I lean on for strength. So again, so just going back. So I've played provincially, I've played at school level, and I've played nationally. I was the youngest player at the FINA World Champs when I was 15 years old. Playing against, I think the oldest player there was about 44, and also she was a giant. And I had to play her, I had to mark her, which was very scary, but I overcame. And then I played World Champs. After that, I played Commonwealth, I played a bunch of tournaments up until my last World Champs, when on the first night, I think I was at my best form. I arrived day 1 again straight to the dining hall after a long flight, and I slipped and fractured my lateral malleolus, so my ankle, literally the night I arrived. And I remember going in and out of Russian hospitals where no one speaks English, they all use sound. It's like, and I'm like, it's really, really sore. And Google Translate, and there are soldiers everywhere, and it's scary and daunting, but every single day, I believed I could play. So I'd wake up the next day, and my coach would be like, are you ready? I'm like, yes, I'm so ready. And I could not walk, I could not do anything. Long story short, I had to leave because I was unable to play. Following that, it's quite a big injury for a sportsman. I think it takes out most rugby players as well. And so I couldn't actually ever get back to where I was. And I actually did try and train again, but I think it was more a mental thing. Like I overcompensated on one side when I was kicking, and it was just really tough. And so that was kind of the end of my playing career for me. And I remember a similar like experience of not actually wanting to be poolside, not wanting to be around a pool. Like it was just really tough. And so I think it took me about 1.5 years to kind of get back, even just being around the pool. So I never ever got back to like playing professionally. I'd play like league and like for fun. But I was actually started coaching the little grey under 6, under 7 boys, the Pee-wees boys and girls. We managed to get some girls. And I was just reminded about why I started and loved the sport, like the teaching of it and the basics. And I think Megan, as a coach today, still uses the stuff that I taught her when she was little, like cupcake hands and pancake hands. She actually said that the other day, and I was like, what? she still uses it. And I think that's where my passion for coaching actually began. And I liked what Megan said about those doors, because again, yes, the door for me in terms of playing closed, but another one opened, and it opened massively. When I started coaching, I completely went into it, coached provincially, coached Meg, I think twice when you played provincially, and at school, coached at collegiate, so I've kind of been with her on her journey. And then I coached nationally quite a few teams, and then obviously coming towards the Olympic Games. And when this happened and when the appointment happened, my first question was like, how? Like, how are you appointing me at my age as head coach for the women's team? And I struggled with this. I couldn't really wrap my head around it. And I actually didn't tell anyone. I knew for months. And I kind of like silently did work behind the scenes, but I never felt like I could tell anyone. I almost felt like I wasn't good enough, and like I didn't want to share this because people were going to question me, you know? But then I realized I was my own worst enemy because I was questioning me. I didn't have faith in myself, and I didn't give myself enough credit until I asked the question. So I went to my director of coaching and our head of our technical committee at Swimming South Africa, and I said, I want to know today, like, why am I here? Is it here because it's a quota hire? Is it because it's a female and you want to bring changes? Like, what is it? And they went, Delane, it's very simple. You are the most capped coach in the country at the moment in terms of your national caps. And I was like, oh, sorry. And something almost like switched. It wasn't like a confidence thing. It was almost like okay, now you need to like step this up. So I went and I dug into it, and I really got stuck into it. Conference calls with coaches overseas. I was on like seminars and all sorts of stuff, just trying to make sure I had some sort of knowledge. And then obviously we were told that we were sending a team to the Olympic Games, and this was massive. Like, as a player, this was my goal. I wanted to play there. We had a qualifier where we missed one goal, hit crossbar, and we didn't make it. And I remember it was Shanghai, and it was terrible. And now I had the opportunity to take a team. And as much as it's exciting, you also think like, oh, I could have been playing, you know. But anyway, so I'll carry on. And we knew this was happening when we had our first camp, and I was very nervous. I was nervous because I played with some of these players that I was now about to coach, and I didn't know how it would be received. And I remember arriving in Stellenbosch, and I was very nervous, and it was masks and COVID, a whole other field. It was just very different. And to my surprise, everyone just took to me. It was so easy. And it was like this, it was so easy for me to actually be in that space and coach the squad and I surprised myself. And I think that for me is the lesson here, right? It's like you sell yourself short every single time. When something happens, we almost question why is it happening? So we want something to happen, and we're so impatient. And for me, I always get reminded by a lot of people close to me that I'm very impatient, and it has to happen in God's time. And I'll always be like, yes, I know. But in my mind, I'm going we talk every day. Surely you're going to make this happen sooner, you know? And he's just going, again, in my time. And for me to then leave that camp and then plan 8 camps after that and run with this ladies program, still, it didn't feel like enough. I still didn't feel like I was owning the space or like I deserved to be there. And the announcement came, like Megan said, and the work behind the scenes. So they just see us at these practices and at these sessions and shouting and screaming and being nice because I'm a nice person. But they don't see the work behind the scenes, right? Which is the stuff that really, really affects you emotionally, and it's hard because you also you work this 8 to 5 job basically at school for me at your workplace, and then when you get home you have this 1-year-old boy who's on you. You cannot go anywhere. You can't make any stops when you enter that house. It's me and you, and you're not going anywhere, Mom. And then needing to drag him into a Zoom meeting about a team member or the Olympics or getting some info, and it's tough and it's draining, and you look again and you haven't made supper, and your husband's doing everything, and your son's off to sleep, and you haven't had him for bath time, and this was that 8 months for me where I felt pure guilt. So that's why I couldn't really enjoy this. Well, that's what I thought. And I remember now making the decision, well, even though I was appointed, I still had to make the decision because I was a nursing mom, and he was a year, and just, I think when I left, he was a year and a half. So I had to make this decision, actually. Do you actually do this? Do you take this step, and do you go and coach the first ever South African and actually women's team from Africa at the Olympic Games, or do you stay here with your son? And like, to some that might be like, oh, that's a no-brainer, you're gonna go to Tokyo. But actually, it was a fight. It was a fight with myself, everyone around me, my husband, everyone's so supportive, but it's me, right? It's me that needs to make this decision, and it's almost like, how will this impact my son when he's older? And it wasn't until, and I speak to the Lord every day, and I do it in a way where it doesn't feel like it's a prayer now. It's like when I'm driving, when I'm in the car, when I'm angry and I'm sorry, when I am, wrestling with myself, it's continuous. And I realized in that period, it became more. It was more intensified, and I think to this day, that's the only way I got through anything. My mom always says, Isaiah 58 verse 10, he will, yes, you go into the mountains, but he will bring it back for you, and you'll get through it, and I think so much of that helped me. And it's that continuous self-talk that actually is prayer that helped me and guided me. So I made this decision to go, but it was the toughest decision. I think for the first day in Tokyo, the team didn't see me. I had an amazing assistant coach in Duncan Woods, and he is a mental coach as well. And he knew that it was a tough time for me because it was the first time ever I was away from my son for a long time. And he was at every single training camp with me that I went to, so I never had this time away. Now I arrive in Tokyo at this most amazing place and the pinnacle of any sporting career, and I'm here as the ladies' head coach, and I'm not taking in this moment. Like, why? And so I took this day and again fought with myself, and I walked around and whatever, and then I kind of brought myself back because you need to realize where you are, how big this moment is. And actually, my boy is very, very resilient, and he was incredible. And if he's being so incredible, like, surely, like, you need to pick yourself up here. And I think from like day 2, I completely just went into this role and got stuck in. For some reason, I don't know how I got through it, but going through our trainings and our first game and everything else was very intense. It was never ever a day of just like rest. I didn't know what that was. I felt like having Christian and him not sleeping was a breeze compared to what was happening there. Every day COVID was a thing. We lost 2 of our players 48 hours before we left. Hence, she was the only goalkeeper. We had to do reselection in the first week when we were there. There was constant challenges. And here's another thing I'd like to share. It's so easy for us to say that life is hard. And yes, it is, and it is 100%, but I actually cannot stand that saying. I can't stand that life is hard because I honestly believe, and yes, please know that this is my own opinion and beliefs, but so Jesus died for us, right? So that we can have life, and so that we can have everlasting life and a wonderful life. So how can that be hard? It's challenging 100%. There are challenges every day. I mean, people that are addicted to drugs, that are living on the street, it is hard and it is challenging, yes? But he cannot bring us into this life and die for us to just exist in fear and stress and this feeling of I'm not good enough. It cannot be like that. He takes us to this mountain, and yes, it's massive, but he also gives us the tools and the strength to overcome it, yes? So arriving at my first game, this was a mountain. I'm about to play, was it Netherlands? Spain, or even worse. I'm about to play Spain. So number 2 in the world at this point. Actually, European champions just won the tournament. So they had an entire tournament. And I arrive here with a team of South African girls with a lot of gees, but 0 game experience, like nothing. We had 0 games. We had lots of COVID, but like nothing. We had nothing, and I'm, I'm like expecting the world from these girls, but also paddling hard inside. Like they never ever can see how much I am panicking here. And I remember, and this is my favorite moment of the entire Olympic Games. So we obviously did our warm-up and stuff, and this pool is incredible. So you have to take in everything. So they're all in this like call room, and I walk pool deck past everything and everyone, and I'm very silent before a game because I'm going through my own stuff. But I walk pool deck, and I stand on our side of the pool where our benches are. And if I'm looking up, our South African flag is right there. And I put my hands on my hips. I don't know if you guys know the Superman pose from Grey's Anatomy. Surely. Okay, I'll show you. So the flag's like right there. And so everything's here, and there's like technical people, and the TV's going, and everyone's there. And in this moment, I put my bags down, and I'm standing there, no one's around me. And I go Superwoman pose, just like this, chest out, confidence. Again, terrified on the inside. And I look up, and the only thing that I can think of looking at this flag is, thank you, Lord. Like, thank you so much. Like, it was just, there was nothing else. I could not think of anything. I couldn't think of anything except thank you so much for bringing me to this place and like getting me through the toughest months of my life to stand here and be able to do what I love on the biggest stage in the entire world. So yeah, that's the when you're afraid. And I'm almost at the end. So that happened, and this calmness came over me, and I realized that I'm not alone, and I never am. And the team arrived, and the sound went, and the anthem was going, and again, there's tears every time because we're just so proud of our country and being and representing. But then leaving that game, I walked out, and we had these interviews and stuff for TV, and the one reporter goes, so then how do you feel? So I'm like, I'm exhausted. I just had a tough game. And he goes, do you know that you're the first ever female head coach at the Olympic Games for water polo? And I was like, exactly like this for about 5 seconds. And he was like, I was like, no, you have to go check that. I promise you. I literally went, no, can't be. You have to go and check this. And he's like, what is she doing? Like, are you kidding? I promise you, he went away and came back with a list of names of every single year, and he went, look. He's like, do you want me to send you this? And I was like, no, it's okay. I now believe you. And the first thing again, and here comes that doubt, that self-doubt. And I went, but why? Why are there not more females here? There should be, and instead of taking in this moment of like, this is where you are, like you've done this, like this is big. And then he went a step further, and he went, and you're the youngest head coach to ever coach at the Olympic Games for water polo. At age 28, first female, here you are. How does that make you feel? It was unbelievable to know that this is where I am, and this is what I'm doing. And to fast forward to the end of this, from our first game to our last game, the incredible growth this team experienced was unbelievable. But our last game against Australia, unbelievable team, just completely drilled and well-disciplined. I mean, we limited them to 14 goals, and that was all Megan. Unbelievable game. And incredible. And I remember, before I walked up again, my assistant coach said to me, he went, express yourself. And those words will forever be with me. He said, express yourself. And I think that game was the best game of water polo I've ever coached in my life. And we finished that game, and we felt like we won it. There were tears, and there was celebrations, and the tech tables and the referees and the reporters, they felt like we won it. Everyone was so happy and hugging, and like we actually didn't realize like what just happened, because for a nation to come out of absolutely doing nothing, to come and do that was unreal. And I think that was the moment for me that I realized you 100% deserved every single moment you took. And that, leaving the Olympics, it completely changed my life. I want to be better in everything I do. As a mom, as a daughter, as a wife, I want to be better. I wanna do better. You know, I've just come back from Israel with the under-20 team 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. Went straight into another tournament with a younger group. Again, that mindset change, having to adapt, that came in. And then while I was away, I'm almost done, I promise. While I was away in Israel, my son was sick, like badly sick, in and out of hospital. And again, the only thing I had and could do was pray, right? And coming back, he was still ill. And even today, and this is why I have to end here. So we leave for the Czech Republic next week, and again, that fight. Do you, don't you, you know? But today I had to take my son back into hospital. And so this afternoon, this evening, we left the hospital and he's back home. And I thought, and it was very easy for me to maybe just phone Andrew and say, I actually can't make today. Like, I have to be at home with him. He's not well. But every other thing inside of me made me feel like I had to be here today. And when I sat here again earlier, and the most wonderful singing, by the way, was happening, I realized it's because I was meant to be here. I needed to be here. I needed to have that release and feel that, and to remind myself that I am enough and that He is enough for me. And so I'm grateful more than anything for being allowed this space and this experience, because this for me was bigger than anything, and actually everything I needed this week and going into our preparation for next week. So thank you guys so much. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing that with us.
I think our resilience. I think that we obviously have the ability to